All right. We are back. Yes, indeed. We are back for another open court discussion live in the Counselor's Corner. I am your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor. Joining me is my co host, the Big Bad Wolf, Herb Lewis. The panel will be a showtime decision unless someone is willing to step up, not now, but right now. Recap from this past Monday show where we discuss how do fathers manipulate their daughters. I would have loved to have some female participants, but maybe the subject was too painful. Nevertheless, go back and check out the replay on the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. Let's fast forward to tonight, December 11th at 9 p.m. We will cover the relationship between fathers and sons. We will be discussing what sons need from their fathers, such as showing that they matter, they are loved, they are important, and how proud of you are of him. On the other hand, they might trust them like a extension of them to fulfill dad's unmet needs. Critical of their achievements, physical violence to exert dominance, and emotional manipulation to make sons feel responsible for the father's happiness or success. Trust these points I just dropped at the beginning of is just the beginning of what's to come. Please like and share our video and ask 7 people to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. We're sitting at 793 subs. We picked up about 27 subs since the last broadcast, 7 away from the big 800. So, all right, here we go. Excuse me, I'm a little congested this evening, and I'm going to see how long I can maintain. But, it's that time of the year. Anybody seen me earlier? I had posted a picture with one of them damn annoying masks on, but I probably need to make that an everyday thing until the until the spring comes, because I don't know. I think it's another strand out here of this COVID stuff, and it's just that time of year people gonna get sick. And for whatever reason, them kids love coming in my office saying, "Mr. Glover, I'm sick." Okay, why are you in here? I did not call for you. Did not ask you to come in here. Why are you not in the nurse's office? But for whatever reason, they like coming to my office telling me they sick. So here you have it. All right, what's good with you, Herb?
Well, first of all, let me start by thanking you personally, David, for all the work you've done and for what you allowed me to do on this particular platform. Second of all, I want to thank the listeners. Third of all, most importantly, as David mentioned, our subscribers, because without you, we're nothing. I want to start by speaking about a situation I had. I shouldn't say I had, a situation I encountered when I went to the local grocery store. I was walking in, and there was a young African American couple behind me. Now, the gentleman had threw something on the ground. And the young lady replied, "Why would you do that when the garbage can is only 10 feet from you?" He said, "Because I can." Now, be overhearing this, and I'm thinking, this is why our community, quote unquote, the ghetto, is in such disarray, because we have people that don't take time to put something in a proper place. And I turned around to the young lady and I said, "Ma'am," I said, "he's just really displaying a lack of empathy. There's not much you can do about that." The guy chimed back, "You know what? I can do what I want to." I said, "See, ma'am," I said, "that's a perfect example." And then he started saying something else. I said, "Listen, bro, I'm not your enemy. I don't have a problem with what you did. I just see it and understand it." So, in that trip there, the irony of me talking about what's going on is I purchased some books at a supermarket. I don't know if you can read the title. That one. And this one. And this one. All right. So, as I was walking out, there's another brother who had, I guess, had entered the store with some items that he had previously purchased. And the cashier asked him to see his receipt. Now he got offended because the assumption is that he was taking them because he said you should be walking around in the bag with the store. And he got offended and he replied, he said, "Ma'am, I don't need to steal. I got a pocket full of money. I got more money than you probably do." Showed his receipt, went through the bag, and went on about his way. And she started saying something. I said, "Ma'am," I said, "it's no fault of yours." I said, "I understand the position that he's in because black men in this country have a difficult time with being perceived in a criminal light." I said, "Next time, might I offer you this and use it and say to him, 'Sir, I'm sorry if this offends you. I would just like to see a receipt for the items that you purchased.'" Now, it turns out, as I was leaving the store, she was going on a break, that the store manager or the shift manager, who happened to be a young brother, told her to do that. Now, in my opinion, that brother is a coward. I'll say it again. He's a coward for putting her in that position. He compromised her because he didn't know how that guy was going to react, and it would have been received a little bit different if he had asked himself. So people in management positions, never put your subordinates in a compromised position. That's unfair to them, and that's your job, not theirs. All right. Just wanted to make sure that I actually put that out there for people, so people can learn, because we're all here to learn. We all should be here to learn, and we all should be here to teach. So I just want to make sure that I put that out there. But that's about it, though. The weekend was a weekend. Dallas kicking ass, clipping wings, and things. Saute.
Uh, yeah, they gotta play Busy Buff this week. We'll see. We'll see. But all right, to the subject matter in hand. We had talked. If you seen the promo, we had talked about in the last few weeks. Um, mother's manipulation of sons. Then we came back with ways that dads manipulate daughters. So now we're going to talk about the conversation of, you know, relationship with dads and their fathers and sons, which, many people often say uh, that after a certain age, if the father and mother is not together, probably when they start hitting like third grade, fourth grade, they may need to go stay with dad if all possible. If he's, you know, caring, nurturing, responsible, and all of that stuff. You just don't want your child to go stay with him just for the sake of because he's a man. I mean, he has to be responsible and caring. So let's just say, for example, if that is the case, and I know a lot of people may say, that's bullshit or whatever. And then some guys may come back. The only reason why she does it because she wants that child support. And if he came to stay with me, I don't want none of her damn money. We gonna be all right. And may have some legitimate points right there. That not all, but great deal probably feel that way. Like, oh, that's not about to mess up my money or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, like in the last couple weeks, you have to look at what's the best interest of the child. So you always have to consider that. And thanks, Doctor Anwar. Hit that like button, like, share, all that good stuff. So that's one of the things I wanted to open up to. Anything you want to add to that, Herb?
Yeah, I'm gonna follow that up with this little piece of thing, and then we can really get into it. When I say the word father, what comes to mind? Genetic material, blueprint, schematic to manhood, deadbeat, active, abusive, controlling, alcoholic. benevolent dictator, teacher, protector, provider. If you picked only one, you wouldn't necessarily be right. Yet the better pick would be all of them. Why? Because that's what fatherhood is. Fatherhood doesn't come with a pamphlet, doesn't come with schematics, blueprint, directions. It's all trial and error. It's the ultimate trial and error, which you hope that he's correct more than he's incorrect. Children are resilient. You know, they have to be, because some of them would never get through their childhood if they weren't. But boys need to be more resilient than girls because for him, life was cruel and unyielding. His failures mean people might suffer and he'll be homeless. He has to be his own safety net. Tonight we'll cover the good and the bad.
That reminded me when you said what comes to mind, and I remember, I think it was last year, we had our boys group at school there. We kind of had free association put up the word father, and the boys came up and kind of put their first thoughts. I was trying to pull it up and see if I could find it, so you could have the actual things. But some of the stuff was kind of they had, some of them had some good things, like like my hero, king and leader. But then it was, some of the kids was like, bitch ass, abusive, sorry as hell, and it just kind of went on. So it was kind of eye opening, and like, man, you just never know. You just never know what your kids actually think about you. And a lot of times, people out here trying to chase that silver bullet, as I always say, of trying to be mommy dearest, daddy's dearest, but you just never know what the kid actually thinks. You just never know. You may think everything is on the up and up, but then they may have something else to say. Yeah, Herbert, if you could send Anwar the link.
Oh, absolutely.
So that was something came to my mind, that exercise with the boys. But personally, when I think about it, and I'll be transparent, and I've spoke about my relationship with my dad on here numerous times. I just saw someone who had a world of potential, but just got caught out there with the streets, and which also going through the vicious cycle of mistreatment of his dad to him led him to not always being the best that he could be with his three sons. Well, actually, four. But so it was a lot of, there was some good times, bad times, but a lot of times I always thought, like, man, if he would have did better, or if he would have, when I talked about those four things that boys need, like to feel important, to feel, make your son feel like he matters, show him that you're proud of him, and show him love. I think if, especially the importance, and what I did, especially, growing up playing sports, you always want to be want to shine in your father's eyes. And to be honest, I could be, I ain't gonna say I forgot. Shit, I think he might have attended maybe like one or two games in all the years that I played sports, and which at the time when you're younger, it's kind of sad, because growing up playing sports, it was a lot of politics. The kids who had their fathers there on a regular basis, especially in like PAL football and stuff, they were the ones who typically got the good positions. Uh, the quarterback, running back, things like that, because their dads were advocating for them. But if you just out there and you got the talent, but you don't have nobody to vouch for you, sometimes you end up getting left out. So I think that was a hindrance, and then just him always being on my case about something, or just kind of envious of the relationship I had with my mother, kind of made me, uh, when the lights got bright, a little nervous at times. And sometimes I think shit is better that he don't come around. But I'm just gonna start it off right there. I'll segue back in with some more. What's going on, Doc?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my phone, it was running StreamYard and the YouTube at the same time. It normally doesn't do that. So I had to come out, close that, and come back. So, yeah, fellas, hey, I haven't been up in a while. I saw the title for this one, and even the title just kind of touches me right here. So I thought I'd come in and participate a little bit tonight. I was actually thinking about this at the gym earlier, and I wrote a couple things down to kind of add to your cipher here. And I see we got someone else. I'll hold the mic for a little bit and I'll pass it. One thing I wrote down is that it matters. It matters knowing who your father is, and there are I have a lot of peers. I'm sure you guys have a lot of peers who don't know who their father is. And I remember my dad told me that his father told him, always make sure your children know who you are. Okay, so I appreciate that. And that matters for boys and for girls, because girls need fathers or male figures too. The other thing I wrote down is that with me and my father, I always wanted the relationship that Michael Jordan had with his dad. His dad, if you ever watch Come Fly With Me or Playground, or if you watch any of Michael's documentaries, you see that James Jordan, he was very, very close with James Jordan. And James Jordan was like Michael's number one fan. All right. At least that's the way they portrayed it to us. I'm sure they had their father-son run-ins, but I always thought that'd be cool to have that kind of relationship with my father. And me and my father, it changed over the years. I think, some of you may have experienced this with your parents. Your relationship might start out one way, but as you get older and as they get older, things change. You start to see how human they are. You start to see their frailties, and you start to see the things that they don't have. And in some instances, some parents, they try to compete with you. I've seen this for both girls and for boys. Some mothers try to compete with their daughters. And then sometimes your father, well, while they may start off as your number one supporter, they may also end up envying you and your success at some point. So relationships change. They don't always stay positive. Sometimes they become negative. And sometimes your parent might start off as your greatest supporter, but they may end up being your greatest adversary at times as well. I've experienced that in my father-son relationship with my dad. There are times when I was younger, he told me he was proud of me. And then there were times when I got older, got into school, started dating, got my PhD, where there were times when he's felt like an adversary. I'm thinking back to the early days of the Counselor's Corner when you started doing the live shows, David. I'm thinking about Miss Harrington. Miss Harrington. I'll just call her Miss Harrington. Y'all know who Miss Harrington is. And I remember my engagement ring story. And I remember, for those watching, in some circles, it's the custom. If the marriage doesn't go through, it's the custom for the fiance to give the ring back. Okay, so I didn't know that. Okay. And I didn't know that that was a whole part of the way that's supposed to go down. So when my engagement broke down, I mean, I didn't even talk to her about it beforehand. That, Joe, if this doesn't work, the custom is for you to give me that piece of jewelry back. Okay. And Miss Harrington, we call her Miss Harrington, she thought that was funny because the question is, well, how do you not know? How do you not know that? Then the question is, whose job is it to tell you, or is it anybody's job to tell you? Okay. And the reality is that your parents can only tell you what they know. And that's a harsh reality that we all run into, especially if you trust them and you take their word as the gospel. Eventually you arrive at the boundaries of their knowledge, and you realize that they don't know everything. And you realize that maybe they know some things, but maybe their information is not adequate, or maybe it doesn't apply to what's happening today. I've experienced that as well. A lot of what they knew, a lot of what they thought, a lot of how they grew up, it's a much different environment today. I'm gonna say one more thing, and I'm gonna get out of the way because we have someone else here. This is going back to Ms. Harrington's question about how did you not know that? How do you not know? So my dad's father died when he was 18. So, and we talked about this. And so from 18 on, my dad didn't really glom on to any other older men, right? So he didn't find a mentor. He didn't find mentors. So he was out there doing it by trial and error, figuring everything out on his own, taking his lumps, but figuring everything out on his own. And the one thing I realized is that manhood, I might get some criticism for this, but there are things that are passed on, okay? And if no one passes them on, you're not going to know. And you guys know that out here, points get deducted for things you don't know. It might not be your fault. People may not have told you, what points will be deducted because you don't know. Well, whose job was it to tell you? All right. So one quick story, and then I'll mute up. My dad is right now 73. So I went to dinner in the spring with him and the woman he was dating. And after dinner, I noticed that we were getting up to leave. He just picked up her coat and he handed it to her. Here's your coat. And I said, oh, that's interesting. He didn't put the coat on for her. So in the spirit of being gentlemanly and in the spirit of being chivalrous, that's something that you do. That's a best practice. You guys work in jobs, there's a thing called best practice. Romantically and on dates, what you do is ideally you take her coat off, and then when you're getting up from the meal, you put her coat on. All right. I learned that from a mentor. I didn't learn that from my father. I learned that by watching a mentor, and I incorporated that. I picked that up. But my dad, I watched him hand her the coat, and I was like, why didn't he put her coat on? Because nobody told him. So, what am I saying here? I'm saying that, yeah, the father-son relationship matters. Ideally, you have a positive one. Relationships evolve. And if this is important to tell young boys, if you're not getting what you need at home, some things you may have to go out and find yourself. And you can have multiple fathers, because your biological father may not know everything. And there's no way anybody can know everything.
You know what? Let me ask you a question, Doctor.
Okay.
Do you know the proper way to put a coat on a woman?
All right, Herb. All right, you put a wrinkle on this that I don't even know. What's the best way?
All right, people. Little etiquette class for you. A person should never reach for a coat sleeve. It is your job to put this coat through their arm. All right? Both. So they don't have to reach. So when they're doing it, they put their hand back there. You put the sleeve through, up, and on their shoulders.
Hold on,
That's a
hold on.
good question.
I was looking at Ernie comments. So go back, Herb, because I never put a coat on a woman. I mean, I just never like I never seen it. So seen it on movies and stuff like that, but never seen it in like real time. So repeat that again. I missed it.
Okay, when you're putting the coat on, we're speaking mostly to men who probably will do this because women generally don't. But in case you're doing it for an elderly person, because they might be a little bit more brittle, you don't make them reach. Allow them to put their arms back behind them as if they're going to be under arrest, and you put the coat sleeve on them. In other words, you're going to put the sleeve through their arms up into their elbows, and then do the other one, and then pull it up on both sides at the same time. This gets into, and I have an extensive list with a lot of things that we'll bring to the counselor's corner, for gentlemen. We did pass to manhood, but there's a difference between being a man and being a gentleman. That's next level stuff. But like I said, we'll get to that there by and by. It's similar to escorting a blind person. A lot of people have no idea how to escort a blind person. They think you walk up and grab them. Don't ever do that. Remember, they are blind. You are sighted. You know who you are. They have no idea who you are. So if you're a stranger, introduce yourself and allow them to grab your elbow, and that's how you escort them. If you go in like chain restaurants, I used to work at a chain restaurant, and they were big on table presentation and consistency with table presentation. There was a particular reason why, and that was because in case a blind person sits at that table, everything is always regimented, every table they sit at. So the salt was first, pepper was second. If you ever go to a wedding or everything has a place. Coffee cups, saucers, cocktail knives, shrimp knife, all of that set up left or right. So anybody that sits at the table, whether they're blind or sighted, knows what they're doing. These are things that we're not taught in the black coaches, just simply put, because we never get a chance to attend these type of events. So you go to a black tie event and everybody thinks black tie. Oh, that means you have a black tie. No, black tie means something. We just don't know because we're never around those type of things. And Dr. Dunbar, I'm sure you know who Larry Elder is.
Mm-hmm.
Have you bought his book?
I have one of them. And I got it years ago. I don't think it's the one you're talking about. I have the 13 Things You Can't Say in America. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I would get the other book, and I think you know what I'm talking about. Dear Father, Dear Son, 8 hours. Yes.
Before you jump into that, I think we should address this comment here because this is a huge comment.
I see Ernie. No, I see Ernie. I'm gonna get to Ernie in a moment. I haven't gotten them. Yeah, Dear Father, Dear Son, 8 hours. 2 lives, 8 hours. He said he wants to ask a question. You put the quote on her. Doesn't mean no. It means he didn't know. Dr. Dunbar just mentioned that. There's a lot of things growing up that we assume that our parents knew that they didn't know anything about. You got to keep in mind that when we grew up, or when our parents grew up, some of them may have never had coats. It's similar to the whole SAT thing, and David brought this up some time ago about a ship is to a yacht is to what the heck is it? I can't remember the question completely. A yacht is to a yacht is to what's the name? As a cup is to what? We didn't have saucers growing up. So if you had a coffee cup, that was it.
Well, the other thing.
So go ahead, doctor.
Yeah. So the other thing about this is I would say no, because he did not put her coat on her. That doesn't mean he did not love her. My dad did like this lady, but I think the overarching message is that he didn't know. He's 73.
Right.
Okay. Which means either nobody taught him or someone told him he should do it and he didn't remember it, he didn't care. But you can see that these things will go on generation after generation after generation unless someone steps in and tells the younger generations, this is what you're supposed to do. This is a good practice. those things will go on and on and on. And in some instances, points will be deducted. Okay. And nobody will know why, because nobody ever taught the lesson. Nobody ever said this is what you should do when you're out on a date and it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
These things will go on and on and on unless there's somebody there to teach it.
Which, and I want to bring Gavin in. So it makes me think, isn't it time for someone to put something together, a curriculum or something, and make this into like an after school program or something, a summer program or something, so these young men can know. Then again, a lot of it we don't know. But I guess if you start fellowshipping and having these conversations, then everybody can essentially get on the right page. But other than that, we're already down socially. It's getting worse, like the social skills. So these kids and young men need this more than ever at this point in time.
Well,
right. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say a bad word. I'm gonna say it. Someone's gonna tar in front of me. That's why Kevin Samuels did his Men in Training thing. That's what
absolutely.
That's what that was about. That was about, well, it was about a bunch of different things, but because the reality is, when you finish your bachelor's, when you finish your PhD, when you finish your MD, your JD, whatever, you're not finished. Okay, those degrees confer professional training on you. They confer academic training, but those don't teach you anything about social etiquette. Those don't teach you anything about fine dining. Those don't teach you anything about how to get fitted for a suit. Okay, so that's in part what that effort was about.
I thought the best way to get fitted for a suit was take a woman with you and let her decipher if it fit nice or not.
A tailor. What Dr. Dunbar's essentially talking about, a tailor.
I know that. I'm being facetious, but I'm saying sometimes guys will say, "Hey, if they're involved with someone, and they may, have her come along just to get a third eye."
Yeah.
Fourth or fifth eye.
See, Roxanne's she's experiencing that too. There's the whole walk on the outside of the street thing. She says, I've met many men who have never heard of that. So there you go. Who's going to teach that? Whose job is that to teach that?
The only problem with that particular statement, and it's not a Roxanne statement, so people don't think I'm jumping on Roxanne, is it's dated. Now, if I was to ask Roxanne why that's like that, I guarantee you she wouldn't know. Does anybody know why that's like that, or why that was like that? Gavin? That's because there wasn't plumbing. Oh. There wasn't plumbing, so people would take their chamber pots and empty the contents outside of their window. This is why you always saw men walk with umbrellas, so they would walk with the women on the inside, the umbrella, so if waste came out, the woman wasn't hit. It has nothing to do with being protected by traffic, because traffic then was a horse and carriage. Horses and carriages weren't veering and careening off the road, hitting people. That's why that's dated. So even if you use that concept today and you're walking down the street with a woman on the outside, if a car comes on the curb, guess what? His body's not going to protect you more than your body's going to protect him. You both end up being very seriously hurt.
Yeah. How about
I stand corrected. Roxanne did know.
How about
the sewage
in the cold weather states? How about going outside and turning your lady's car on and brushing it off and scraping it off, so she doesn't have to do that before she has to go to work? I mean,
the only problem with that.
What's that? Herb?
The only problem with that is a lot of these women are feigning independence, and this is where it comes back to biting the hand that feeds you. You can't punch me and then turn around and tell me you love me, because now you're sending me conflicting messages. Any person that has a reflex action when they touch something hot, what do? They pull their hand away. self-preservation. The body's gonna preserve itself. With the damn what you think it do, the body's no, we're not doing that yet. Crazy. So when women say, I don't need a man, I'm independent, these are the subliminal messages that women are sending out. So when you don't get help on the side of the road and a man drives by, just thinking how many times you put out that negative connotation that you're independent, strong, and you don't need no man. So you can't, or women shouldn't be displeased and upset when you're hanging out with a group of women, even though you may think differently. If a woman says that and you don't distance yourself from her or correct her, then you're by default guilty. I know that's going to rub some people the wrong way. I'm just here to tell you what men see, how men perceive it, and what men think.
Well, you know, I got to come with your famous one about you in a car with a woman and there's brick outside and she stops to get gas and you say it's not your car, not your problem. You ain't pumping gas for no woman.
Nope. Not unless it's prearranged.
Wow.
Unless it's prearranged. Now, if she's my significant other, that's gonna change a couple of things. But if it's if we just friends, no. Okay.
But what if you trying to get her to be, and like Anwar said, you're gonna lose points on that.
But you know what? Let me put it to you like this. When it comes to me and how I date, I'm LeBron James. I can't lose enough points to lose. I'm number one. I'm number one. It don't matter. I'm always scoring. Some way or somehow, I'm always scoring. It don't matter. I'm still number one. Go ahead. The man of the hour, the man that's responsible for this particular topic. Salute. Go ahead, Gavin.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Yes. Another point, and women don't understand nowadays about opening the door and allowing a woman to walk in first. Do they understand how that started? And what was the original context of that occurring? That occurred again, dated back in a time when a man who is this woman's protector of some sort, whether it's her brother, father, husband, and he was her protector, the only way he opened a door for her to go somewhere first, into an abode first, because he already knew that place was a safe environment for her to go into. Otherwise, as her protector, if it wasn't a place where he's sure of safety, he stepped in first, quick determination, a quick reconnaissance to determine what's going on. And if it was safe, all right, she could come in. If it wasn't, step back. No, we out of here.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
All right, let me throw this out here for a discussion before you get back in here, David, and then you can pick up. Let me ask this question. This is for men or women, doesn't matter. If you had a son who was a teenager getting ready to go to college, and you had the ability to fast track him into his profession, which profession would you choose? Would you choose to have him be the CEO of a $44 billion worldwide business? The potential to be a world leader? An actor or entertainer? Or a multi-million-dollar athlete? Just want to put that out there. We can come back to that answer or the choices later in the broadcast. All of those things have a father-son element. I just want people to know that. So that's why I asked that particular question. It may seem crazy, but they're there. That's one of the reasons why I like doing the research for this particular thing, because I learned things that I hadn't even considered. And I was just like, ooh, that's right. Oh, that's definitely correct. And I thought about that. So I bring that to you guys.
I wanted to read the comment from Roxanne. She said, unfortunately, many of the Boys to Men programs aren't funded, or the people who run it are boys without fathers, so they don't know. It's a cycle.
It's true. Me myself personally, I would be more than amenable to doing these particular types of things. The only problem that I foresee, at least here, is the consistency with trying to get the parents to get their sons to a particular place on time. Most of them want you to provide transportation, and then some just don't care. They use it as a, they'll use after school programs as a glorified babysitter, so they can get away from the child. They're not even really interested in if the child learns or even retains the information, which is the disheartening part. So, but me personally, I'd have fun doing that, because I would turn it into um a skit. And it's funny how my mind works. I was thinking, if we have a meet and greet or meet up with members from the Counselor's Corner, that we can do an Amazing Race type of thing for Niagara Falls. But that would be something that would be in 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 the works in the future. But but I would be more than happy to do something like that. The only thing that would be required, um, a venue, and the venue wouldn't have to be that big. Um, we would need I would have to actually sit down, and I'll probably do this tomorrow night while I'm at work, because it'll be slow enough. We would need a venue, items, um, depending on how extensive we want to get. I mean, do we want to teach them just etiquette, or do we want to teach them about hygiene, shaving, um, how to maintain a home? I mean, this can get really, really extensive, if you're speaking to somebody like me, because I like to be thorough like that. But that's just me. Like, case in point, I don't think any black man should know how to cut hair. When I was in the foster home out in Arcot, there were no black barbers around. The gentleman that I stayed with cut our hair. I personally started cutting my hair when I was about 15 years old. Had some awful cuts, and doing a whole lot of criticism and ridicule.
What you mean, cut your hair bald?
No, cut your hair with
Oh,
clippers.
like, so line
Get
it
them hair.
up and blend it and
I'm
all of
talking,
that?
yes, whatever you need to do, you should be able. Every man should be able to do it. Not that he needs to, but we saw what happened during COVID, where a lot of people just couldn't get access to a barber because of the restrictions. And people was wondering, and Dr. Dunbar mentioned this man's name, Kevin Samuels. She said, because I hired a gentleman who could do that. Now, I do my own, and I do reasonably well for a person who's had no formal training. I can taper, I can fade, I can do all of that. I just choose not to, because one, my hairline's receding, and two, I don't need it. My waves speak for themselves. I like the way my waves look. But that's been something I've been
Waves,
working on.
Irvin. Let me see those waves. Thought you had waves like Carlos Muhammad.
No, my hair's no, my hair's he's got thicker hair than I do, so I can't swim in the pool that he swims in. He he's he's in the Marianas Trench. I'm still bobbing up top. But all these things, I mean, these come with a competent man leading the way. Now, um, Dr. Dunbar said, not every man knows his father. I, personally speaking, am one of those men. I have never met, touched, exchanged any words with my biological father. I am not worse for the wear. I've had enough men, older brothers, who have stepped in and filled that void to where I've learned. I was talking about replacing my roof, my garage roof. That was something I learned being in the foster home. How to use a tape measure, how to use a power chainsaw, an axe, a wedge. Literally, when I stayed with this family, there was nothing, and I do mean nothing, that this man couldn't do. I saw this man pull a car engine, a motor from a 1974 Ford truck and put it into another one. Cut out the windows of a van and insert windows. Built a storage shed from the ground up, poured concrete, wired it so the electricity worked, and then furnished it with heat. I probably would never get to that level of competency, but the point is, we need to ensure that what we know is taught to the next generation of men so that they are competent in some way, shape, or form. We don't need to, and I used to get into an argument with somebody years ago in another group that I was in, where he talked about him and his wife were going to be doctors and this, and I said, but who's going to do the stuff that you need done around the house? Well, I'll contract that to somebody else. I'm not saying you're wrong, but to me, and a man who can't build something with his hands, in my opinion, and this is not to besmirch anybody, he's not a complete man. Because think about it. If you're somewhere where you don't have cell phone coverage, and that's a lot of this country, people don't realize that. You somewhere where you don't have cell phone coverage, you can't call AAA, you have a flat tire. What are you going to do?
Well, Herb, the other thing.
Go ahead, Doc.
Is if you're with a woman who has a house, okay, here's some free advice. If you have a woman who has a house and you don't know how to swing a hammer or turn a wrench or something, she's gonna look at you like you're stupid. If you can't put things together, she's gonna look at you like you're stupid. So I agree with that.
You can't stop a faucet from leaking. One of the most basic things you could do. Not only does that save you money, it makes you look like a hero. She makes you look like you're competent. I always tell people, I'm a confident man. Like I said earlier about my garage roof. If I had to pay somebody to do my garage roof, that's about $5,000. $5,000 just for taking off some plywood, some paper, and some asphalt shingles.
Or painting.
Yes.
Or doing whatever outside project she wants you to do. Mm-hmm. If you can't do it, you don't know how to do it. I mean, unless you're a tradesman, some things are gonna fall outside of your skill set. But kind of the basics, yeah. If you can't do the basics, and if your lady has a house and she's kind of used to doing things and you can't, yeah, that's not going to end well.
And these are things that people aren't going to tell you. You're not going to necessarily have these discussions in red pill circles. And acknowledgement to BGS and the bang up yeoman's job he's been doing with emotional labor. All
the Jermaine stand up.
That's another thing that we'll be getting into by and by, because I think it's important for men to understand how to do it, when to do it, and more importantly, when not to do it. BGS always says, hey, if you're gonna do it, get paid for it. And sex is not payment. Per BGS, and I agree. Sex, because both of y'all getting something. So we'll get to that. That's on another episode of the Counselor's Corner. But yeah, man, all that stuff, you need to be, if you can't, basic stuff. You can't drive a nail, you got a problem. You don't know the difference between a Phillip and a flathead, you got a problem. If you don't know the difference between a washer and a lock washer, you got a problem.
Yeah. So look at Kia's comment here, or she can teach you. You got to have a woman who really loves you to be able to do that. That's the best case scenario. But even if she has to teach you, she might still say, dang, this nigga, this Negro doesn't know how to change a shower head. He doesn't know how to, change a doorknob. He doesn't know how to do this. He doesn't know how to do that. Yeah, most of the time you're gonna get points deducted, I think.
But again, how would somebody know how to do that if they never did it before, unless they just start practicing doing shit on their own? Other than that, they wouldn't know how to do it, or somebody.
It's like women
taught
being
them.
taught knowing how to cook from scratch. Same difference.
Oh boy.
Ah, woo.
Say that again.
Hey, just like women nowadays be able to cook from scratch. I mean, you can't like knock us if we don't know how to like you said, brother said, prepare a doorknob or those kind of things. And Brother David countered if he wasn't taught. But nowadays, ask a woman if she could cook from scratch. Or we get the retorts. You know what I'm talking about.
Let me read to you what I stated earlier, Gavin. A man's failures mean people might suffer and he'll be homeless. He has to be his own safety net. Society is not going to. And this is why men are judged more harshly, because men are supposed to be competent. So, and women will tell you this. So if you don't know, it is your job to go find out. Knowledge is the funny thing in this country, and particularly in this world now. Most of the information that you need is at your fingertips. Now, the only question is the individual actually going to go seek that information? And then when they get it, are they actually going to go do trial and error to make sure that they're proficient at it? Because make no mistake, when I was doing my roof, it didn't come out 100% completely the way it should. Now, from time to time, I walk up and down the street because I love to walk. I get that from my mother, bless her soul. And I see roofers. Guess what I do? I ask questions. Just last week, I saw a guy doing a roof. I said, hey, let me ask you a question. I said, when you lay in plywood, I said, are your seams supposed to be flush? Or is there supposed to be a gap? Because I looked on YouTube and I saw they had things that gave you about a 2 centimeter gap. And for people that don't understand metric, a 2 centimeter gap is about a 16th of an inch. He said, you know what? He said, today, with the way they're constructing things today, he said, it doesn't even matter. He said, because once you put the tar paper over it and then shingle it, nobody's ever going to see that gap. He said, and the way any material, man-made or otherwise, expands and contracts in the summer, he said, you're going to need that gap, because what happens is the boards expand and they come up against each other and they start to push in and they start to crack and warp. So your shingles become bent and all of a sudden you get air in there and then you start to get water leaks. People, go ahead,
I'm going to say one more thing, and then I have to drop because I have a 7 o'clock meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to this gentleman's question right next to me, I don't remember his name. Gavin. Yeah, I think with the way things have evolved, we've definitely gotten away from, even though our roles as men, I think we're still expected to adhere to those roles.
Mm-hmm.
And even though things are set up, even though things have evolved to the point where these things are not being passed down to us the way that they might have been or the way that they should have been, we're kind of still expected to know, and much more than that opposite example you presented in terms of women should know them. I can't think of what I want to say. Them should have learning. I can't articulate myself. What's wrong? Them and cooking. Them and knowing how to cook, even though they should know or they should have learned, quote unquote, or maybe someone should have taught them that role. I don't know. I kind of think we're kind of expected more to adhere to our roles than our traditional roles than them. Yeah.
I understand.
Under the guise of things being more progressive and it's 2023, and we're the same now. We're even though I think some people are starting to see now that we're not the same.
Guess I better get my skills set up because I don't be knowing to do half of that shit. Don't care either.
Well, I mean, it's it's like the Boy Scout motto. It's better to need something. It's better to know how to do something and not need to do it than to need to do it and not know how to do it. Now, I haven't changed the leaky faucet, in 8-9 years. I remember I had to call a plumber because I couldn't get the tape to adhere right on the nozzle in my basement. He came in, and that was it. I said, "Oh, that's what I didn't do right." Now I know. Plumber's tape. It helps to seal any space that you can't do, along with just the two steel things, because steel sometimes it gets cold and it doesn't adhere, so it kind of acts as a rubber washer and things of that nature, and it helps to keep that water from coming back. So I mean, some of the stuff. I mean, we ask ourselves, what am I going to need that for? It's just like you talk about with the math, David, greater than, less than, or equal to. We sit up in class, when they were teaching basic geometry and the Pythagorean theorem and all of this, you say, what the hell am I going to need to know length times width times height? What the hell is all that going to do? Like Dr. Dunbar said, you might have this hot chick say, "Hey, babe, can you do me a favor? I need my room painted." What's the first thing you're going to ask her? Outside of what color paint she wants.
I'll let you guys go here.
Anybody?
I'm not going to answer this one. No, I'm not going to answer this one.
Anybody know what questions you're going to ask her next? How much paint do you need?
Oh, see, I thought you were going to say something else.
Does she have any primer?
No, you don't need, just no. Well, you could do the primer, but I'm going to assume that she just wants the wall painted over, which is another excellent point. Now, when you find out how much paint she needs, length, time, width, give you your area. You'll go to the store. You get however many gallons of paint. They're going to ask you, you want satin, flat, stain, eggshell? You're going to say, what the hell is all of this stuff? I just want some paint. And they're going to ask you the same questions. Well, sir, I understand you want some paint, but what are you using it for? You can use it for the bathroom. Does it matter? Yes, because some is easier to clean. And when it gets wetted, it's okay. You're going to use it for a kid's room. All of this stuff matters. But if you don't know, you don't know. Like Dr. Dunbar said, depending on what the expertise is of the man, that might fall outside the scope of his knowledge. So he might call up a friend and say, "Hey, look, I got a project I'm working on. Can you help me? What do I need to do? This, and this." As long as you have the basics of whatever it is, most reasonable men will be able to figure out at least how to get the project going. You may not do it as well as a professional, and that's to be expected because you're not a professional. I wouldn't expect to go to a person who does woodworking and expect them to lay carpet well. No, they're not a carpenter. Same thing. I wouldn't expect to go to a person who does masonry work and expect them to lay carpet. That's why you have all these different people doing all these different things. Case in point, and I know this gets a touch off the beaten path. I'm watching turn of the 20th century movies on ships: Titanic, Britannic, Olympic. When those guys were done building the hull of the ship and they set that ship out, they have a process that's called fitting out. Even your military ships up today have the same process. Shipbuilding hasn't changed much over the time, like literally has not. So the finishing out is this: they put all the guts, boilers, or now nuclear reactors in the ship, and then they add everything else in. So they come in, carpenters, painters, and what you see is the finished product. I would encourage people, if you're mechanically inclined, to go look at ship called the HMS Victory. HMS Victory. The HMS Victory is the oldest commissioned military ship in the world. It is a part of, I believe, the British Admiralty, which essentially is the British Navy. Second, or first, is that one, and then of course I got to mention, shameless plug, the USS Constitution, commonly referred to as Old Ironsides. But the way that they constructed the HMS Victory is a thing of work, and we're talking almost 300 years ago now. You know, when this ship was constructed, and the process for me is by no means enlightening and stimulating, but I like that type of stuff. So I'm, when it comes to building things of that nature and military things, I'm kind of a geek in that regard. But some of those things can all be universally applied. You know, how to measure and cut properly. They always tell you, measure twice, cut once. That's because if you cut a piece of wood too short and you don't have any more wood, you don't spend some money and you don't ruin that money. You ain't gonna burn money, but essentially that's what you're doing when you cut a 2x4 a quarter inch too short. Now, a quarter inch may not sound like a lot, but if you need a beam that's 6 inches, 5 3/4 inches ain't gonna cut it. I often ask people, what's the difference between one hash on a blueprint and two? The wise person would answer, a whole lot of money. Remember the baseball stadium in Milwaukee that fell? That's due to faulty construction. And that's what they mean by, they say, faulty construction. So your engineer companies are on the hook for a whole lot of money. This is why being accurate matters. Something else that they don't teach boys. Well, what difference does it make if it's only this and that? You'll hear that a lot from women.
You talking about a bridge collapsing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because women don't think accuracy matters. They say, well, it's close enough. Yeah, if I got a grenade, I'm gonna get you. But if I'm trying to build something, no. It needs to be exact. A gap, and let me see if I can come up with a really good example. If you have, let's say you're trying to build something that's airtight. You have matter of fact, let's take a pressurized underwater vessel and you submerge it. You get to about 100 feet, and that 1 centimeter crack under pressure is like a fire hose turned on. That ship is going to sink quickly. The further down you go, the greater the pressure, the more water comes in. This is what happened with that submersible that sank that was looking at the Titanic. They had what they call a catastrophic collapse. Boom. For those of you, and I'm just talking about shipbuilding, for those of you who are U.S. Navy fans or follow anything U.S. Navy, the USS Thresher, I believe, suffered something similar along those lines. The first U.S. nuclear submarine, Thresher, if you want to look that up. Sorry, I'm just bombarding you with stuff tonight. But it happens. I mean, you look at how and I hate to throw countries under the bus, but you look at how Russia constructed some of their stuff. There's a movie called The K-9. If you're interested, go watch that. I mean, all of the stuff matters. I mean, you're talking things that seem insignificant in terms of building, but it matters. That's why, like David said, for women, they're going to want their man, regardless of how much money he makes, how wealthy he is. They're going to want you to be able to do simple, basic, around the house things. You can't figure out how to get that door from squeaking? That's going to keep me up all night. You can't figure out how to get the toilet to stop running? That's going to keep us up all night. I can't tell you how many times I get calls at a hotel, or at the front desk, I should say, and they will tell me that the toilet keeps running. Okay, I'll go up there, jiggle a handle, look up, plunger fall. Gone. And they'll say, "What'd you do?" "Well, just plunger was stuck." "That's it?" "Yeah." Now I look like a hero. Just when they're and got the chain unstuck, the plunger, and it stops. They're happy. I look great. The hotel looks great. Problem resolved. But if you don't know,
So if you're doing that for a woman in her home, why wouldn't you be considered a simp?
you said, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because guys are doing that in hopes of landing something. If I do something for a woman, it's because I have the ability and she means something to me. I'm not doing something at the hopes of scoring some booty. That's the difference
Well,
between
David, I
being
think
a confident man and being a simp. Simps do with the hope of trying to score. I do it just because I can do it. And sometimes I want to be a show off.
Well, David, I think it depends on why you do it, what your intentions are.
Yeah.
But I'll just say number one, Herb. Yeah, those plumbing jobs. Yeah, those jobs. I've done a few. My claim to fame is changing out my toilet.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, man, you're some of those jobs. You're on your back. You're trying to like turn screws and wrenches and fixtures. They haven't been moved in years, and so you can't even move them. So anyway, I just want to say shout out to the blue collar guys. They don't always get the respect they deserve, but everything we do is on their shoulders. But hey, guys, I got to drop. I got a 7 o'clock meeting, so you guys have a good night. Just want to come up and hang out a little bit.
All right.
Take care.
Appreciate you coming through. All right. Well, somebody just hit me up, Herb. They said, "Why y'all doing all of this, learning plumbing and all that stuff?" They said, They said they more into plowing.
Hey, that's fine. I'm not telling any individual, not to plant seeds.
I'm talking about more in the sexual context. They said they're more into plowing.
No, I'm with you, and I'm saying I'm not telling you not to plant seeds. The only problem comes in: what are you gonna do if one of those seeds happens to germinate? And that woman calls you and she says, "Hun, I'm short on the rent. Can I come stay with you?" She comes over and the first thing she do is says, "Your door is squeaky. I can't sleep here like that, and I want quiet." What are you gonna do? Now, if you're unfortunate, you've been plowing some fields that's already been plowed, and she bring her kids with her, and one of them kids jump up and down the bed and they break the bed. How are you gonna fix that bed? Snap the spring? Oh shit! Now you got to get up out the bed because she ain't gonna let you sleep because her kids ain't comfortable. Or one of the kids done broke the doorknob, broke the window. What you gonna do then? She said, "Well, no, you ain't getting until you fix that." All of a sudden, now you'll see some days are over. I'm just telling you, partner. I'm not telling you not to be Farmer Brown. I'm just telling you, Farmer Brown understood that if he couldn't fix a window, he wasn't sowing those seeds in any furrow. You did?
Well, it was a couple things on here that was said. I'm going way back to when y'all mentioned about the Boys to Men group and the hygiene. Well, our old panel member got that program. Willie A. Price speaks absolutely nothing but the truth. He been pushing his program, A Better You, for years on how to keep up the upkeep of your home and teaching boys hygiene and cooking and budgeting and stocks and bonds and all of that stuff. So there's people out there doing it. What else? Ernie has said all of those don't have a father-son thing because LeBron James didn't have his father and he has a lot of great skills in his marriage. So where did he learn from his mom? So what did he learn from his mama?
That
Uh there's what people need to understand is that learning for most of us, especially for the people who are short on time, learning occurs a lot when you surround yourself with people who know more than you. That's why the adage exists. You never want to be the smartest person in your group, because if you are, you're hanging out with the wrong people. Why do you think some people go to places to where, quote unquote, they're the dumbest person in the room? Because the hope is that you learn something. KRS One famously said it in a rhyme years ago. I hang with the rich and I work for the poor. Because giving was the payment. Because he had been given so much. Information, bless and Star Phelim always talks about this. Information is free if you know how to access it. A lot of people refuse to go hang out in circles where they're the only one because they don't want to feel ostracized. They don't want to feel like they're alone. Newsflash: there's nothing worse than not knowing how to do something and you need to have it done. Who are you gonna call? And you can't afford to pay him? What are you gonna do? It puts you in a bad light. You can't barter because you know nothing. You can't trade services because you don't know how to provide anything. At least with somebody who knows how to do something, you can say, hey, look, I need a favor. And they can say, okay, you know what? This guy's a mechanic. I'll go over and I'll swap out his toilet for him. You know what? I might need a starter. He might do that for me. You haven't paid anything per se, but the knowledge gets you what you need. This is how a lot of stuff was done before the advent of money. You traded services. You bartered. But now that has gone away, people don't think that they still need, especially men. Men don't think they need to learn how to do things. Oh, I'll just pick up the phone and call somebody. Or I'll need no. Do it yourself. They have a whole section, whole TV shows called DIY, and that stands for Do It Yourself. Because people want to get back to the ways of old. When the power grid went down in Texas year before last, you had people who were literally sitting in their homes in, I think, like 50-degree heat, if you will, freezing, because in Texas 50 degrees is cold, no heat. Because for people who don't know, the state of Texas is not connected to any national power grids. So if the power grid goes down in the state of Texas, they are on their own. No federal assistance, no federal aid is coming to that state to help out. Texas and the residents have wanted it that way. So I'm just telling you, because we never know where our adventures might take us. Case in point, if you go hiking somewhere and all of a sudden you find yourself caught in a blizzard, you got an axe, you got a few matches. What do you do first? Do you build a shelter or do you start a fire? I will tell you one thing. You don't have long to figure it out.
build a shelter.
No. Nope.
Why?
Build you a fire because you can only go a few days without water. You want to melt that snow so you have something potable to drink. You melt the snow, you purify that water, you have something to drink, then you work on the shelter.
Yeah, but you said caught in a blizzard. Would the blizzard blow out your chance of starting that fire? Would you want to build the shelter first to have a windbreak against the wind?
You can do that by putting by breaking branches off of trees. Especially, I'm going to assume that this place is full of pine needles, or I'm sorry, pine trees. You can take those tree branches and build you a shelter that protects you from the blizzard. Keep in mind, people, a blizzard refers to wind gusts, not snow accumulation. Wind gusts. I just learned that last year when we had the blizzard here, and that's what I mean. So you can get the branches and break them off and build you a windbreak.
Yeah,
you can get
I
behind
consider
that.
shelter in the most general terms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because remember,
yes.
if the wind is blowing, you ain't gonna be able to start a fire. So that wind will blow it out before you get a chance to ignite something.
Want me tell you how you do it?
Yeah.
You find yourself a tree that you can chop down with that axe. Do that, hollow it out, and you put dead material in there, and then you use a flint, and you start that fire. It'll start to burn down into the wood. 10, 15 minutes. You can make it that long.
In a sense, a shelter from the elements. You can build that fire.
Yeah. So, I mean, depending on how you want. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just a reverse order of what they would teach you. Because you're going to need that water eventually. Depending on how long the blizzard is, of course. I mean, you're dealing with a nor'easter that's only a day or two long. Yeah, you might be okay. But if you're caught somewhere in the Northwest where nor'easters tend to go for days, you could be in trouble. Case in point, you're out west. Have you ever heard of the Donner Pass?
Not really. Kind of, but some time ago.
Go look up the Donner Pass, and you'll understand. And everybody else, if you've never heard of the Donner Pass, go look up the Donner Pass.
Is that where I'll find DB Cooper?
Hey, if you find him, let me know. I had asked a question earlier. If you had a son and he's off to college and you were going to raise him, or I'm sorry, fast track him into the profession of his choice, what would that be? The first answer was a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar world business. That would be the Ford family. Ford is valued at $44 billion. All right. The next answer I gave was world leader. Count them. We have 2 presidents whose sons have gone on to become presidents. Of course, most of our listeners will know about George Walker and George Herbert Walker Bush. But most won't know about John Adams and John Quincy Adams, the son. Of course, we know about the Kennedys. They're well known. We can't forget about them. And then we have, the father-son athletes. Take your pick. I mean, David's going to know about this as a Laker fan. You got Kobe Bryant, his father, Jelly Bean Bryant. You got Curry, his father, Del Curry. Another Laker, Michael Thompson, his son, Curry's teammate. Ken Norton Jr., who played for the Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers. His father, one of the very few men to beat Muhammad Ali, Ken Norton. And then we move into entertainment. Of course, we have the Jacksons. Spawned an entire family. Let's see. I'll get into entertainment. Of course, I like this one because I think it's so cool. Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Jr., the only father-son to hit home runs in a baseball game, in a Major League Baseball game, back to back. And one of the things I found out, while doing this research is for those who are Denzel Washington fans, his son actually played in the Spike Lee movie, Black Klansman. I didn't know that was his son. Had no idea until I read it. I was like,
Are you
what?
serious? You didn't know that?
Yes. Yes, that is
Er,
Denzel Washington's son.
Shame on you.
I didn't know.
Tisk, tisk, tisk.
I did not know. I did not know. That's why I said, I like doing the background, research for stuff like this because I learn stuff. I mean, I tell people, look, I only know what I know. So, when I find something, I assume that I may be the only person that didn't know. I may not be the only person that didn't know. So, I'll put that out there. This, I mean, the list of names I have literally about 30 names here, and I only read a few. I mentioned the Thompsons, Rick Barry and his son Brent Barry, first Caucasian slam dunk champion, Calvin and Grant Hill, Richard Petty, Gordie Howe and his son. Gordie Howe and his son. I mean, Mario Andretti for the race car fans out there. Vladimir and his son. I mean, it's the stories are numerous, but in order for these sons to have got there or to have gotten there, they needed a blueprint. I mentioned earlier, it doesn't come with a blueprint, but if you've done it, you are the blueprint. You are the teacher. You are the first person that can say, "Hey, son, you coming with me to work." Shout out to Mumia Obsidian Ali. He talks about, him going to work out of high school as a blue collar tradesman. 22 years before he was injured on the job. We had people in the city of Niagara Falls. Shout out to Mafia Reynolds, who was a fantastic high school wrestler. His son now is attending the University of Gannon wrestling. Roddy Gale, huge shout out to Roddy Gale. His son is playing D1 ball at a major Power 5 conference. I'm not going to mention the school only because I'm a Michigan fan. It kind of burns me. But a shout out to him and his boy, man. His boy is putting in work. And his boy is in his sophomore year. He's got a couple more years left. Shout out to them brothers. I mean, we got people, the high school basketball coach, Carlos Bradbury. He's doing his thing. All of this stuff becomes cyclical. You can teach because you have it. You can give the knowledge to the next generation. Because again, a shout out to Modi Cox, kid I grew up with. He's coming back here, and they're putting together a phenomenal coaching staff for this basketball team. And make no mistake, these brothers have decades of basketball wisdom that these kids are going to benefit from. Not only will these kids benefit from, the basketball aspect of it, they're going to benefit from the masculine side of how to be fully functional, productive citizens. I can just about assure you that you probably won't hear about any of these kids coming out of that program who are going to be scofflaws, criminals, producers of kids out of wedlock. Although that no matter how well intended you are, sometimes that is just a fact of life that it happens. And that doesn't necessarily make them a good person, a bad person. It's just a situation that I personally would like to see us as a people, as a culture, at any rate, beat back the tide of, because that's, that marks us. It mars us. People look at us and they just say, all y'all doing is just producing kids at random. Look at your communities. They in shambles. They in disarray. And nobody wants to be around you guys. I mean, that's almost the consensus. And at times, I have to ask myself, it's like the example I gave at the top of the broadcast. Why do we continually produce? And when I say we, I'm speaking very loosely. Why do we continue to produce people who don't care, who don't know no better, who lack empathy? And it is almost gets to the point where it becomes epidemic and it spreads like a fire through dry brush. And we need to start arresting all of this nonsense because the way our culture is going, we're going to be, you know, in numbers similar to what the Native Americans are in this country, and that's not very many. So if that's what we want, all we have to do is continue to do what we've been doing. It's like my boys say, the pain of being the great gets too same. When the pain of being the same gets too great, that's when you change.
Covered a lot of information, and again, I'm kind of quiet tonight, taking it all in, kind of congested, so it
Oh yeah.
seems to be quiet. But to kind of bring some of the other points in before we wrap it up, and I know I mentioned earlier about the downside, or I think Dr. Anwar had mentioned like how the relationship changes between father and sons. You have that enviness as, as far as that, and some of it may come from just the father not kind of living vicariously through his son.
Mhm.
Like he was that athlete, or could have been that athlete, and now he's pushing and pushing real hard for a son to do it, and when those results don't end up being like he wants them, then then it turns into like ridicule and kind of like bashing the son because he didn't get to the level that, and say for example, it may be the case of he had the son when he was, had kids when he was younger, or he couldn't put the time into it because he had to work, but now life is easier for the son, so he's thinking, okay, I know he's gonna be next level. He's gonna be next level. He's gonna get where I didn't go. Sometimes it don't pan out that way. Just don't work out that way. Hey, look at Jordan's sons. As far as basketball, they both scrubs. The one was better, I think. Forgot his name. I don't know if it's Marcus. One of them. The second
Marcus
oldest
is
one
one
that
of
he
my
had played.
guys. Yeah.
I think he played for Central Florida or something. He was better, even though the oldest one went to like Illinois or somewhere like that. But he wasn't good at all. Uh, Sometimes it just don't work out. Everybody's looking at Bronny James, wonder like, okay, is he? Somebody had just posted a question: Do y'all really think he's gonna make it to the NBA?
He
And
may not even go.
uh, yeah,
That's the thing. What if he? And that's the other thing that people need to be cognizant of is, and it's just like in the movie Fences. He may not want to go that route. What if he wants to be a surgeon? What if he just wants to
see,
be a world traveler?
well, I think
I
it's
mean, yeah.
already kind of programmed that for him to go, and then even for Bryce to go and LeBron be still playing when they're both in there.
Mhm.
When the thing about Bryce, he got a little height. He's big. He's like 6'5", 6'6" or something. I
Okay.
think he's a junior. So, but I
Kind of like
think
Sador and Prime.
yeah,
Dion, yeah, man, but Dion, I don't think the people realize Dion was born with certain physical attributes. To catch that in a family, you know, at and make no mistake, Shador can play. He absolutely can play, but he's playing a different position. He's playing a a dependent position,
Exactly.
whereas Dion wasn't playing a dependent position. And people that don't understand football, let me explain what a dependent position means. A dependent position means he has to depend on other people around him so he can look good. Case in point, if you're a manager at a 5-star restaurant, rave reviews, all of a sudden your staff starts getting orders wrong, start, just little stuff here, little stuff there. Guess who they're gonna look at? They're gonna look at you, the manager. Now in football, the manager is the quarterback. So when things go wrong, guess who gets the blame? The quarterback. Now conversely, Dion was a cornerback where, it's generally one-on-one unless you're playing some type of different coverage. So you, for better or worse, or for for Dion, for better or for worse, he pretty much controlled his own destiny and blessed with what I like to call WCS, world-class speed. You cannot teach speed. Either you do have it or you don't. You can't develop speed. Either you are or you are not. And some people like to argue with me about, oh, you can teach somebody to be fast. No, you can't. You can help somebody be quicker, but you can't help somebody be fast. If somebody wakes up and they're running 4.2, somebody that runs a 4.3 will be hard pressed to beat them in a race. It's a simple mathematics. I can cover the ground quicker than you can. Sorry, that's what it is. If I can get up in the morning and with some work, I can run a 4.3, I might be able to match that person. But guess what? If that person gets up and does the same work that I do, guess what? He's going to run a 4.2. I'm never going to catch him. So that's the thing. We talk about all this. What sons might do in their father's. Will their son fall in the father's shadow? It doesn't always happen like that. Some just don't. They don't want that. They want something different. I'm trying to think of a situation where a father or a son didn't follow in his father's footsteps in terms of being a professional athlete. I can't recall any off the top of my head. I know there's several fathers who produce multiple children who are in the NFL. The Kelsey brothers, they come to mind. The Manning brothers, Archie and Eli, they come to mind. There's a lot of them out here running around, and no pun intended. So they're there, and their father, took them to work with them, just like some fathers, taking their kids to school. Or I'm sorry, taking the kids to school. If he's a professor, taking the kids to work. If he's an iron worker, they have bring your kids to work day, and that's how a lot of kids, they get exposed to certain professions. They say, "Hey, that looks cool. What are you doing?" Well, I'm a scientist, so I put these slides under a microscope. I'll look at them, and the kid gets up there. I don't see anything. He looks in and says, "Oh, what is that?" He said, "Well, that's a microbe. That's paramecium. It's a bacteria." And I say, "Yeah, that's cool." They say, "But hey, in order for you to get here, you have to do all of this stuff, because everything we do is a process." David mentioned at the top of the broadcast, we're 8 subs short of 800. I don't think when Dave started doing this, he probably didn't imagine that he was going to have this many people following him. I mean, that's a testament to his vision, to what he saw, and I think it's the coolest thing ever. Personally, it reminds me of when I ran for elected office. I didn't know how many people was going to vote for me. I didn't know how many people my message was going to resonate with. And it turns out that you don't know who's going to follow you, who's going to support you, but get out there and do the work. And if you do the work, your results will show. I don't care who says otherwise. I've never known any person to not go out there and put forth some effort and have something to show for it. Never.
Another point that ties that kind of veers it off in another direction in fathers and sons. Sometimes that role, like I had mentioned on the promo, that the physical dominance. Sometimes the son comes live with the dad, and because he's running amok with the at mom's house, and now dad is asserting his dominance over him all the time, and those relationships probably don't always end up well because every opportunity uh, the father gets, he's ready to jump on him, or talking about how this ain't gonna fly in his house, and some of the stuff could be he maybe just need to hear the boy out, maybe just hearing him out. Maybe we don't know what the issue is because if you're the type that's just gonna say, you know what, oh, you doing this at your mom's house, or you gonna come stay here, we gonna this shit ain't gonna I ain't gonna have this shit at my house, and it could be something a simple conversation, and realize like, damn, this was all this was about. So sometimes you gotta communicate and get all the details, but again, some fathers just like try to assert their dominance over the kid, and but then you got to remember this: sooner or later, your body becomes frail and fragile, and that boy becomes a growing man, and depends on what's in his heart. Uh, and I could tell the story of my situation with my dad. It was one time he came over. We got older, and he was still trying to kind of talk the talk that talk he used to when I was younger. And I'm like, listen here, dude, man. I was like, I owe you an ass whooping, right? And he was kind of like, oh, you want to jump on me now? And I said, I'm just telling you. And he still kept running his mouth like he was that dude. But you were that dude when you were younger, but you slipped up. You slipped. Now I'm 22, 23, 24. And I told him, I said, keep talking. We're going to go outside and I'm going to show you a few things. Well, he didn't want to smoke, and I don't think I was gonna really do anything to him. I might have had him down, might have smacked him because I think I deserved to get that back after some of the torment I went through. But nevertheless, he never made no move towards the door. But I'm saying this to say that remember that too for the fathers that come with that domineering approach. That your ass gonna get old sooner or later. You may have that man's strength for a while, but once that gets like 25, 26, and you 50 some 60, you just better hope he don't have a lot of bitterness in his heart because he might try to do something or snatch your ass up and you have a heart attack or something like that. So you gotta be mindful of him coming to live with you, even though you're gonna assert your rules and your structure and all that. But I guess you don't want the whole premise to be that you're just showing how dominant you are over him instead of taking the opportunity to try to figure out what was going on at mom's house and see what y'all can do to kind of get him on the right path. And so sometimes you got to take that approach.
And that story reminds me of and this particular person always causes some consternation in Black America when his name is mentioned. Larry Elder. If you don't know who he is, please, I implore you to go look up his story about him and his father. It was similar to what Davis talked about, but in a different vein. And there's no telling how many men Larry Elder's age, and I think Larry Elder is in his very late to early very late 50s or early 60s. His story is extremely compelling. And when we talked about the good and the bad, this is an example of a domineering quote unquote father who used to routinely beat his children. And his children didn't understand why. And to what David just talked about with his father, he got to the point where he had had enough and he stood up to his father. And there was a period of 10 years where he didn't speak to his father, along the same lines as Ken Norton Jr. and his father, Ken Norton Sr. So I implore people, go look up Larry Elder's story. It's on YouTube. It's a 4 or 5 minute, maybe 6 minute listen at most. And I guarantee you, it will change, or hopefully, it will change the way people look at some greatest generation black fathers who had to endure just to survive. We're not talking about thriving. We're talking about just basic survival, because that's what Larry Elder's father had to endure. So go check that story out. That's why I was asking Dr. Dunbar if he knew about it, because it's so apropos to what we're talking about. That what do you do if you don't know? There's a lot of us who don't know, but we won't seek the information because we're too embarrassed. There's nothing wrong with not knowing. I want people to understand, if you don't know something, you shouldn't be embarrassed or ashamed about it. But go find out. Don't sit there and remain and retain the ignorance. Go shine some light on that ignorance, so that ignorance no longer resides within you.
And there was another point, just like the emotional. We talked about this the past 2 weeks of the manipulation, where some dads would just simply put things out there or say stuff like, after all I've done for you, and this and that, and make someone kind of feel bad about the situation, or always putting that over, like, damn, dad did do this, dad do that, so I can't, I always have to be on his side, or because he's always going to throw that up. And I know when we were talking about the situation the other week with, what's his name, from Chicago, the Chicago Bulls, was it Kobe White, and buying a house for his mother.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it was good, like I said, that John Adams had came up and had spoke up on how, how he was the complete opposite of that. Like, oh, after all I've done for you, and he was saying how he was still, even though his son was playing for the Memphis Grizzlies, he still had him on his cell phone bill, was still paying his car insurance, and never really felt like, okay, now you owe me something. He said he was just simply doing what a dad would do, and he was like, and even when he was at UCLA, he was doing pretty much the same thing, even till he got into the NBA, and I think now he plays overseas. So I'm assuming he has kind of removed him off of this stuff, but just even for those years that, okay, obviously his son has it, he's getting a few dollars, but dad still kept him on his cell phone plan, still kept him under his car insurance, and just like, hey, guess it wasn't hurting him. His son did what he needed to do, and hey, you just roll with it. You don't always have to make it a difficult transition or situation when it doesn't have to be, or have to throw it up like, oh, I paid for the all this traveling, AAU, I played for this, I bought you all these sneakers, I did everything. I can't. Hey, sometimes you just got to be humble, and they'll respect you and remember, like man, I got you, Dad. I got you.
Mhm.
And we wonder why sometimes when kids make it, they may not have their parents like people think they would have, is because some of the hardships that you might have took them through, and they might shit Machiavelli on you, like get ghosts like, damn, I don't even hear from them or her, and they making shit was buku money, and they ain't coming around, they ain't messing with nobody, because you have people like that.
Go ahead, Gavin.
I gotta call it a night.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks
All right.
again.
Appreciate you coming
Absolutely.
through.
Likewise. All right. Peace.
Peace.
All right. Take care, man.
And we're gonna probably get ready to wrap it up. Too. I probably need to go to bed a little earlier than I normally do, and try to still work through this, and so I can get back on track by the end of the week. uh, but any closing comments you have?
Yeah, just I'm gonna read this real quickly. Ever see someone preparing to do something and they're looking around and they see a thumbs up? That's a father's assurance being given. And after working out and is exhausted, but he responds to the call for just one more, that's a good father. The time when a person knew they couldn't do something, yet they tried anyway because his father was watching, that's a great father's impact. It said behind every good man, there's a good woman. That might be true. We do know behind every successful man or son, there's a father. That is undeniable. If that's the case, shouldn't society want more fathers involved in the lives of the children? Shouldn't society want more fathers in the lives of children, period? Then why isn't that the case? Men, masculinity, and fatherhood have been in the crosshairs for quite some time, deemed as toxic. Yet there's a shortage of it in the lives of young boys, leading boys to be, I'm sorry, there's a shortage of it in the lives of young boys, leading them to development into wayward men who become irritable, prone to outbursts of violence, uncontrollable anger, and up until they're being a threat to society. Do we really want to live like that? They deserve the support of a father, even a bad father. Why? Because eventually they'll go and learn to understand right from wrong. Sometimes the worst parents produce the best children because they do not want to be like their parents. The world can only benefit from fathers. Let's push for those benefits. And as always, growth and understanding occurs in the gray area. Godspeed. See you next time.
All right. All right. It's basic as the opening thing, the relationship between fathers and sons is kind of what you make it, and a lot of it is your based on your personal experiences, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, or however you allow it to shape you. Certainly, if you had a negative relationship with your father, there's opportunities. Hopefully, you were around and you've seen some good situations with fathers and sons. Uh, and we always talk about, if and I don't know if it was Herb or Anwar said it. Maybe it was you, Herb. If you can't if that's not physically right there, that you see someone having good relationships, then you need to go around. You might need to seek it out and go
Yeah.
find someone and spend time around those people. Even it could be a cousin of yours, and you always like, damn, they got a good relationship with his dad. Then you might need to spend more time over there,
Mhm.
and things of that nature. But you exposure is the key. You got to put yourself in those situations, because again, we always talk about the definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing, but looking for different results. If all you see is negativity or toxic situation, and those are the situations that you somehow Because we can't keep making an excuse of being a product of your environment. There's too many other tools out here and programs and different things that you could do that you could step away from being a product of your environment. Although that environment is in you, it don't have to own you or dictate you. You can always live. You know the cause. You know the environment. You lived it, but you just chose to live a different life. And I think that's where a lot of people either they find themselves removing themselves from those situations, but some people can't help to just keep bringing themselves back into it, and you don't have to because a lot of times the outcomes don't always end up positive. So just think about that. I mean, this conversation, it was, you know, it was nice this evening, but I know we're not done with it. It's gonna lead to more other conversations as we continue to build and grow and come up with different talking points. Somehow, some way, the basic family unit will always have a lot to do with our community and the good, bad, or indifferent, and some of our ultimate decisions that we make. So we'll keep pushing that narrative that gotta have these conversations, gotta have these discussions, and we gotta take care of what's going on in the home first before anything else change. All right, good people, I'm out. We on to the next one. See y'all next time. Everybody be safe, stay cool, do what you gotta do. Again, be alert. It's getting closer to the holidays. People, they continue doing wild shit, and maybe those are the ones who probably lacking somebody, a father that said, "Boy, if you don't sit your ass down somewhere." In some cases, some of these young boys need their ass kicked. And I think it was just somewhere, and I know this happens often, but somewhere near this area down here in Baltimore, somebody just got killed the other day going into somebody's house trying to break in. Put something in them. I mean, you can't do that. You just can't go in on people's property. Think you can just go in and take stuff, whatever. I mean, you're asking for death. And the big thing is still these little young teenage boys still in these cars and stuff like that. And you get a lot of people opinions say, "Oh, it's just a car. A car could be replaced. That person didn't have to shoot them or didn't have to do that." Now, you need to tell your boys. You need to tell them there's a chance if you take somebody's stuff or you go on their property, there's a chance you may not leave from that property. And some people don't give a damn. They worked hard for theirs, and if you try to take it, they're gonna take you out. So you can't keep having that message too. Like, cars can be replaced, values in a home can be replaced, whatever. But if you bust your ass all your life for it, you don't want nobody to take it. You might want to give it away to somebody, but ain't nobody just gonna take it. So these little young kids, they better think about it. Better think twice. Because it's happening, and it's happening too often that you see these little young kids, they going down the wrong path. And especially the ones 12, 13-year-olds that's carrying guns and stuff like that. It's not a good thing. But that's a whole nother subject for a whole nother day, and that we'll be talking about and continue this conversation in the near future. All right, people, I'm out. We on to the next one. Peace.
All right, people, take care.